Howdy everybody, Spilly here, and this is how I wrote the guitar part and how to play Talk to You by Anotr featuring 54 Ultra. So since the song is about to hit 100 million streams seemingly this week, and I just never thought I'd be a part of a song or play on a song or be co-writer on a song that is of such a great magnitude, I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a tutorial of how to play the guitar part, and then also kind of a story of how the song came to be, and kind of how that writing process went. So we'll start off with the tutorial of how to actually play the part, and then we can I'll talk a little bit about how the song came to be. So the part itself, at full speed, is going to be this. So that's the song at full speed. And basically how you're going to play this is you're going to do an F minor 7 chord, right? And you're going to try really just to play the top 4 strings. That way it doesn't kind of muddy the rest of the arrangement. Kind of a classic funk guitar thing. Stick to either, 4 notes or 3 notes instead of a full 6 or 5. Just because it leaves space for the rest of the instrumentation, because usually you have pretty big arrangements. In this song we had a lot of synths going. At this point it was just the guitar part, but I always try to write, even if we're starting with a guitar part, I'm like, well, I want to make sure I'm leaving room for all the other instruments. So we're going to do an F minor 7, which if you ever played an F minor bar chord, it's the exact same thing, just take your pinky away, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to strum twice, and then take your third finger and your second finger away. Kind of similar, if we were in E flat and doing kind of the Jimi Hendrix thing, but everything changes with context. We're seeing this as an F minor, so it sounds a little different. But in retrospect, if you have ever, you've ever done the kind of the Jimi Hendrix thing, kind of a wait until tomorrow kind of thing, it's a similar concept, just, we have a different kind of tonal center. So I'm doing that, and then taking off my third and second finger. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to hammer on to a G minor 7. So that same shape, just 2 frets up, whole step up. And, the fun thing about this is sometimes you don't want to get too bogged down in the theory, right? Because having that A, natural right there, would kind of sometimes signal a more of a Dorian thing. And it's okay if you don't know that, but it's like sometimes people will play like, oh, why does a G minor 9 not work in C? It's like, well, you're kind of changing modes, but you don't have to think about that with your passing tones, because it could just add some interesting color sometimes, So, now, after we hammer on to the G minor 7, we are going to put our pinky up on F. That's going to be on the 13th fret of the high E string. So those 2 parts together, slowly, will be like that. And this concept was kind of leading me through the whole creation of the riff, because I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I just do that down on C then. I do that same thing. So it's... And what we have here is what I'm always trying to do is have melodies inside my chord progressions. So here, the melody of the chord progression would be ba, 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 which we hear. Right? And so you can have a chord progression that's actually very melodic if you're sticking to smaller voicings, and then also it still leaves room. You don't want a very notey kind of progression in this style of music, but you want to have those counter melodies. That way it can give something to listen to, underneath kind of that vocal melody. So it's a hook in itself, and then it kind of plays nicely because you have a melodic hook, and then the singer, or whoever the vocalist is, in this case 54 Ultra, gets to introduce a new hook. And so you already were kind of, and then Jackson, after the guitar part had written that intro, which is the keys part, which also is very melodic. And that can be a way, if you're kind of stuck, kind of just playing chords, try to introduce some melody into your chord movements, and that can really add a lot, because it always gives something the listener to kind of gravitate towards. So the ba-dum-ba-dum-bum-bum that Jackson plays in the beginning has a very clear melody, then my guitar part has a very clear melody, and then 54 Ultra comes in with the lead melody, and then so we've already been kind of stewing in these different melodic ideas, just to be kind of hit with the main melody, realizing oh, I didn't even realize I needed this, but now it's so perfect, right? So after we do the... We then have, what I basically make is I just pulled notes from C minor 9 that would sound good. So we have this, or C minor 7 add 9. So we have the 7th, the B flat in here, and then the 9, and then C. So that helps us kind of, or B flat, sorry, my apologies. We have B flat, octave, and then the 9. And that was just as like some other voicing to kind of like not just do C again, right? Because the bassist could kind of influence whatever, they want to do as far as like what we hear the root as. And so as a guitarist, you kind of have some freedom to get away with some voicings that could be intuited a different way. So we have that for the first half. And then I do the same thing, but instead of hitting the, I just hit, which this is kind of like, sometimes you can think of music like joke structure, where you were expecting me to go, ba-da, but instead I just go, ba-ba, which can kind of subvert the listener's expectations and keep the person hooked, because we'll get that on the next round. And then what I do is I literally take this exact same shape, this C minor 7 shape, and I go up an octave, and I hit it twice. Okay, so very slowly, the whole progression together is like this. Yeah, and that's the whole that is the bread and butter of that, and kind of how that progression comes together and how it makes sense. So really, it is just a 4-5-1. It's just F minor to G minor to C minor. And that's kind of the fun of writing parts within a very specific genre, is you want to use the constraints of the genre. That way it kind of forces you to be more creative. So I was like, well, I don't want to go outside of a 4-5-1. I want to stay in something that's very kind of classic as far as song structure goes and chord choices go, but I want to put a melody inside there and then utilize that in a way which creates this additional earworm and this counter melody to the vocal line. And it's actually very interesting. Johnny 54 Ultra ended up playing the bass line, and he goes, F to actually B flat to C. So 1-7, and that actually works because G minor, right, is basically all the same notes as B flat major for the most part. And so actually, when I do that hammer on, it's like, oh, well, that actually kind of sounds like a B flat major 7. So, that's where, when you're writing these guitar parts, that's the fun part of sticking to 3 to 4 note voicings, is that the other musicians you're working with have a lot of leeway to kind of experiment with what those notes could even mean, because 3 notes could be a lot of different things, right? A G minor 7 could also be a B major, or B flat major. So yeah, so that's how to play the part. As far as kind of how it was written, it was really cool. Anotr had reached out to me back in 2024 and had just liked my work, and we're like, hey, it would be great to work on something together eventually. And I'm like, yeah, I listened to their music and I'm like, it was great. And I was like, yeah, I feel the same way. That would be awesome. And so, a kind of a year had passed, a year and a half, and it turned out after they had played Burning Man, they do these songwriting retreats. And they were doing one in New York, which is just a few hours from my house. And so they're like, hey, I don't know if you can make it out. That, if you can, it would be great to work together, maybe try to write some songs. And I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. And so I drove up there, and then I kind of had this temporary studio in this place in New York. And, the first night we kind of got on right away, and it was just like, worked on some songs, and the hang was easy, which is always just like a huge part of any kind of writing session, is you want to make sure you can actually hang out as people, otherwise it's going to be a pretty miserable experience. It's just going to be no different than a desk job, right? So the hang was easy, and the next day, 54 Ultra and his songwriter and producer, Jackson Shanks, showed up, and their buddies, and it was the 5 of us, and, really barely knew each other at all, and we'd probably written 6 songs in total to varying degrees of completion, and it wasn't until the last night when Yes and Oz were working on this drum beat and had these vocal chops, and then I was like, well, let me try something to this, and I wrote the guitar part for Talk to You. And then it was one of those amazing experiences that if you talk to any songwriter, it only happens every once in a while, but when it does, it's electric, when, there's a few singular ideas that just kind of spark everyone's mind to go crazy with ideas. So it's probably we started the song pretty late in the evening, and then before you know it, 5 hours had passed, and everyone is just like, oh, I have this vocal part, oh, I have this synth part, oh, I have this bass line, oh, but would we do this for the B section, oh, and it's just one of the most fun moments as a songwriter when that gets to happen, and it's why you need to kind of work for so long, and this is why the sessions that Anotr does are so great because they're much more relaxed environments than I'm accustomed to when I've done like work like this, where it was very much like, yeah, we're hanging out, but we're working the whole time, and in a way where it's like the beat's always going, people are always messing around with ideas. It's very creative, but also if you want to go take a nap or go take a walk in the woods, have at it. You know, it kind of was this environment that was super exciting and fun, and I got to go to the Netherlands last month and work with them more, and it was that same kind of feeling, which is just kind of unlike anything I had kind of done in the session world before. It honestly reminded me a lot when I made music in high school, and it, you know, with my friends and just hanging out with my buds, except, you know, yes, and Anotr, like, they're really, really pro producers and great musicians. So that is kind of how the song came to be. You know, the next day we all left the place, and the studio was torn down, and you never know, like, we had a pretty good feeling, all five of us, when we were writing that. We were like, I don't know what this is, because it was a little different than their other stuff, and we were like, but there's something cool here, and there's something really awesome going on, where we just couldn't stop thinking about those melodies that all of us had written, but you never know, and you just never know, and that's why you write so many songs, because it's more about that, keeping up that writing process, because that's how you get moments like that. But definitely none of us thought it would be like a major hit, as no one ever does, and we're just like, yeah, okay, and it went really, really well, and the song's doing great, and yeah, so it was a great writing experience, really fun song. I'm so happy that I got to play on it and got that experience. It's something that I never really thought would happen. So thanks for watching. Yeah, if you like any more tutorials, well, we'll see if any more Anotr stuff. Depends, you never know what's gonna hit. But I'll do more if there's any more work like that. So thanks for watching. It was a really great writing experience, and yeah, have a great week.